documentary I'm going to add, which I personally like and feel it's very authentic. I'm going to make a very short comment that up until today, when we see the siege and when we are all disturbed, the whole world is now praying for the humanitarian ceasefire, and we see the extent of cruelty extended day and night by bombardment and leveling 2.2 million people's habitat, hospitals, mosques, synagogues, churches, hospitals, refugee spots held and kept by United Nations, camp hospitals, field hospitals. I think there is no example in the history, even what piece of history I'm going to show you, where such a cruelty has been done by people who themselves have been enslaved, slaughtered, and thrown out of their countries. Even the Balfour, when he wrote that letter, which became the cause of the establishment of this Israeli state or Zionist state, actually the dream of the Zionist movement fulfilled, just was full of hate, was anti-Semite or anti-Jew himself, and didn't want to see them in England. And instead, to get rid of them and not to see these, he just put them in somebody else's land, and the land of Palestine. Agriculturally rich, happily living population there, and you have to, the whole world, the whole religions, or the rest of the world, Muslims, and especially the Caliph Umar, the one who liberated and was handed over the keys of Jerusalem. It was his generosity which allowed Jews to come back and have complete freedom in worship. And instead of appreciating the role of Muslims, you see that the present Netanyahu and the extremist likes of him, like Bennett and others, hundreds of them, are slaughtering the Muslims, the same Muslims who were benevolent. And it was again in Ottoman Empire that the Jew was made and given the status of a governor. So even fights, wars, shoulder to shoulder with Israelis, Jews and Muslims together against many enemies. And when you look at their hatred, look at their contemptuous settlements, look at what they have done to the Israelis, you wonder, and shows the real character of Jews, what they are. So to wonder, not that I am endorsing that they were thrown out, and this is exactly what's going to happen again now. Because if you are so cruel and the cruelty reaches to its peak, it may plateau for a while, but that eventually nature takes over, and never ever a cruel person has been allowed to rule. This had a miserable death. You can get back to people who committed crimes as Netanyahu is doing now. You will see that they never ever had a decent death. Pharaoh, you can see how he died. Then you can see the cruelest people like Halaku Khan, and see that how he was killed by his own horse, and his head and skull, I think, was turned into pieces, striking against the stones, and his brain came out, and he died a miserable death. And so did Ariel Sharon, one of the prime ministers of Israel, who walked into the most sacred mosque with his shoes on, that his body putrefied and started to smell, and with autolysis, the fluid started to come out of his port when he was on the life support, and they requested the family that please kindly bury him because the smell felt in the whole city. This is how I think even worse the death Netanyahu is going to face, because the children and women he has killed and the people he has dislodged, and the ideas to throw all West Bank and the people of Gaza. And he stopped their water, he stopped their food, he stopped their medicine. He actually caged them like animals for 16 years. And what he has done to the West Bank is worse than that. That you could look at the various barriers and the guns they provided to those settlers. They can occupy any home of a Palestinian without paying a single penny, and the IDF will help them and protect them and kill the actual owners of the home and the land, the Palestinian Muslims. What a shame. They have learned nothing from the history, and this short history which I am going to add with this will prove it to you that they, if I say deserve it, will be wrong, because there are some good, decent people in Jews who worship one God, who follow Prophet Moses, who had no role in altering Torah or 10 Commandments, or which were given to Prophet Moses and practiced by David and Solomon, and see the infighting which started the actually destruction of the Jews is back again. See the infighting in the parliament of Israel at the moment. See how this cruel man Netanyahu shuts up his defense minister and the intelligence minister and does not even include them in his war council or even let them talk, have them insulted by his ministers. Look at the demonstrations of the Jews of Israel, how they are shouting to get rid of this man, and one single man destroying the peace of the whole world and the trade of the whole world, the economy of the whole world, causing so much misery, has absolutely no right to live on this planet. It's up to the other human being across the whole world, to whom I appeal that there is a solution for such a man, and that is to put him behind the bar and let the justice prevail, hand him over to the International Court of Justice, and let him have his last breath in that jail. Everybody else who supported him, whether that's America, whether that's Britain, or any other body who has supplied him the arsenal to kill so many people, to cause misery to so much, and even see how far away this war or this intrigue of this Netanyahu has spread all the way up to the Red Sea, to the Arabian Sea, to the Indian Ocean, and now it's going way beyond to the other parts, and how the bird is divided, and that one single man, not even trusting, not even respecting United Nations Security Council, United Nations General Body, not even the person who gave him all the money and bombs, America, is showing eyes to both Anthony Blinken, who himself is a Jew. And I was shocked to see him laughing when he was showing him the map, word map, and was laughing as it was a game for him to destroy the world peace. In these words, I will let you see the part of the documentary which I praised, and I still say that it's the best documentary based on truth which you will see now.
175 and is buried in the cave of Machpelah near the city of Hebron, located in today's West Bank. Abraham had 2 sons. One was Isaac, and the other was Ishmael. Isaac is regarded as the ancestor of the Jews, while Ishmael is considered the ancestor of the Arabs. These brothers share the same father, but have different mothers. Isaac was born to Sarah, while Ishmael was born to Hagar. Isaac, around the age of 60, is granted a son even though his wife is barren, His name is Jacob. Jacob by the Lord is given the name Israel. The 12 sons of Jacob are the first generation of the children of Israel, or the Israelites. The lineages of these 12 sons eventually form the 12 tribes of Israel. According to the narrative in the Old Testament, under the leadership of Joseph, one of Jacob's Hasmonean state, marking the end of the last independent Jewish kingdom in history. From that point on, until the 7th century AD, with a few brief interruptions, the land was governed by the Romans. Initially, the relationship between Rome and the province of Judea and its Jewish inhabitants was unproblematic. A minor Jewish revolt that occurred in 53 BC was suppressed by Rome. This revolt did not significantly damage relations, but over time, relations between the two sides deteriorated. The crucifixion of Jesus, a Jewish preacher who was seen by his followers as the Messiah, in the early 1st century AD, further complicated Jewish-Roman relations. While the event itself was part of a broader pattern of Roman responses to perceived challenges to their authority, it also had particular consequences for the Jewish community. Following the crucifixion, tensions between the Jewish leadership, who were concerned about maintaining the peace with Rome, and the growing number of Jesus followers, who were predominantly Jewish at the time, began to rise. These internal divisions added to the already complex dynamics of Judean society under Roman rule. By the year 66 AD, the Jews initiated a major revolt, which soon escalated into the First Jewish-Roman War. The Romans were militarily and technologically superior to the Jews, but the province of Judea was quite far from the empire's center, making logistical support challenging. Consequently, the wars between the Romans and Jews continued for 7 years. In the summer of 70 AD, Emperor Titus entered Jerusalem after a long siege, destroying the city's walls and the city itself. Once in 38 AD, the Jewish population was approximately 150,000. However, they were still prohibited from entering Jerusalem. Caliph Omar lifted this ban upon capturing the city. After 500 years, Jews regained the freedom to settle in Jerusalem. Although some restrictions were imposed over time, these did not significantly limit Jewish freedoms. Nevertheless, high taxes, particularly on agricultural lands, led many Jews to migrate from rural areas to cities and ultimately to emigrate from the country. By the end of the 11th century, the Jewish population in Palestine had decreased significantly. The Crusaders seized Jerusalem in 1099, marking an era of heightened persecution and violence against Jews during the Crusades. European Jewish communities, particularly along the Rhine and Danube, suffered devastating attacks. This violence spread fear as far as Jewish communities in the Middle East. In Haifa, Jewish and Muslim forces united against the Crusaders, yet faced mass slaughter upon the city's defeat. The Crusaders spared no one, taking the lives of all they encountered, regardless of age or faith, including Jewish and Muslim women and children. Similarly, in Jerusalem, Jews and Muslims fought together. The Crusaders destroyed a synagogue, and after Jerusalem's fall, surviving Jews faced execution, forced conversion, or ransom. Due to migrations or exiles spanning thousands of years, Jews dispersed to various parts of the world. Jews who migrated to Germany and northeastern France were named Ashkenazi, those in Spain and Portugal, Sephardic, in Egypt, Iraq, and Yemen, Mizrahi, and in Central Asia and the Caucasus, Bukharan, Notably, many Ashkenazi Jews from Europe crossed the ocean during the 17th and 18th centuries to settle in America. The Middle Ages witnessed pogroms against Jewish communities in Europe, and their fate was often at the mercy of shifting political dynamics. During the Renaissance, Jewish scholars were instrumental in conveying ancient wisdom to Europe's burgeoning intellectual societies. However, the Age of Enlightenment introduced new kinds of anti-Semitism, compelling Jews to tread a fragile path throughout Europe. In the Ottoman Empire, which seized control of Jerusalem in 1516, Jews enjoyed a level of prosperity and were influential in commerce, trade, and even held high offices such as that of Sanjak Bey, a governorship typically reserved for Muslims. Notably, Sultan Bayezid II welcomed the Sephardic Jews who were expelled from Spain and Portugal following the Alhambra Decree of 1492. The Ottomans allowed these Jews to settle in the wealthier cities of the empire, significantly in areas such as Istanbul, Salonika, and Jerusalem, amongst others. These communities thrived and significantly influenced the cultural and social fabric of the Ottoman Empire, forming a vital part of its diverse population. For instance, David Ben-Gurion, the founder of the State of Israel, and Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, its longest-serving president, studied in Istanbul University. However, they were obligated to pay the jizya, a specific tax imposed on non-Muslim citizens, and they also faced some restrictions. In 1860, Jewish journalist Theodor Herzl suggested that Jews should depart Europe to avoid anti-Semitism and the risk of cultural assimilation, advocating for the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. He published Der Judenstaat, laying out his vision for a Jewish homeland, which quickly brought him to prominence in the Jewish world. Herzl convened the first Zionist Congress in Basel in 1897 and tried to gain support for a Jewish state by approaching leaders like German Emperor Wilhelm II and Ottoman Sultan Abdul Hamid II, though unsuccessfully. The movement gained momentum in the early 20th century, particularly after the Balfour Declaration of 1917, which supported the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, then an Ottoman region with a small minority Jewish population. But Arthur James Balfour, known for the Balfour Declaration, is often noted for his anti-Semitic views. In 1905, he supported the Aliens Act, designed to curb the immigration of Russian Jews to Britain, citing them as undesirable. Balfour's advocacy for a Jewish homeland in Palestine was partly influenced by his preference to not have Jewish individuals in British society. He regarded Zionism as a means to ease the historical discomfort that the Jewish presence had ostensibly caused in Western civilization, a presence which he felt Europe could neither fully expel nor assimilate. Following World War I, the defeat of the Ottoman Empire led to Palestine coming under British administration as part of the League of Nations mandate system. This era, known as the British Mandate, witnessed a surge in Jewish immigration to the region and escalating conflicts among the Jewish and Arab populations, as well as with the British authorities. The Arab Revolt of 1936-1939, a resistance against British rule and Jewish immigration, led to the British White Paper of 1939, which proposed a joint Arab-Jewish state. During the revolt, British forces killed over 2,000 Arabs in combat, hanged 108, and attributed the death of 961 to gang and terrorist activities. An analysis by Palestinian historian Walid Khalidi suggests there were approximately 19,792 Arab casualties. Following the Arab Revolt, there were numerous attacks by Jewish paramilitary groups, with the Irgun being one of the most active. Irgun carried out 60 attacks against Palestinian and British targets and was described as a terrorist organization by sources including the New York Times and prominent figures like UK Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Irgun attacks encompassed assaults on British police stations, assassinations, bombings of transport and infrastructure, as well as strikes against British military and administrative targets. Notable incidents include the 1946 bombing of the King David Hotel, which resulted in 91 deaths, including 28 British citizens, and a series of attacks in 1947 that caused numerous casualties among British, Arab, and Jewish populations. However, the
यूनिवर्सल टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें, उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार ज़रूर